Well, at the moment I'm working with big data in the Transfusion Research Unit at Monash University, and I administer the Australian and New Zealand Massive Transfusion Registry. Biostatisticians, clinicians, doctors and scientists are working on the team to analyse the data which is reported back to the hospitals so that they can monitor their progress and improve their results. Developing good research questions or hypotheses is actually a critical part of this whole process. So I pursued a love of biology and completed a Bachelor of Applied Science in Medical Laboratory Science at RMIT University. And I discovered satisfaction in the mix of intellectual challenge and practical work on the laboratory bench. My lecturer in immunohaematology, Ralph Green, was inspirational, and this together with securing my first job at the Red Cross Blood Bank working in the red cell serology laboratory, performing blood groups on donor samples resulted in me ending up as a transfusion medicine scientist. I was really hooked, and it was very fast on blood banking, particularly the wow factor of antibody investigation and blood grouping. I was also really taken by the selfless altruism of the blood donors, and I've noted that in life there is no other therapeutic agent that is given with love. Blood is the only one. So my career has been heavily involved in blood grouping, antibody screening and investigation, and in providing safe blood for transfusion for patients. Well, a typical day depends on where you're employed and to use your scientific skills and thinking. So currently I'm involved in maintaining ethics and site governance for research projects and assisting in developing research questions and reporting data and findings from these analyses. In previous roles, managing a transfusion laboratory within the pathology laboratory of a large metropolitan teaching hospital, I've been involved in managing staff, ensuring compliance of staff and laboratory testing for accreditation, and in providing safe blood products for patients. When working on the laboratory bench in a transfusion laboratory, for example, understanding the principles and limitations of tests performed and careful observation of the processes for any unexpected deviations is really important. Detective work, understanding quality systems, and careful observation is important in all these roles. In the routine transfusion laboratory, we have contributed to the very recently published internationally important TRANSFUSE study, where the effect of transfusion of fresh versus older blood was examined. The hypothesis was actually designed with the thinking that fresher blood was best, but the results showed no difference. Which means that the current 42-day expiry for red blood cell units does not need to be altered, and this is important for the blood supply nationally and internationally. This question, when speaking to my 19-year-old daughter, she said, "That's about, you've found all these wonderful things. Is there anything left for us to discover?" And the answer is yes. Every time a research question is posed and answered, then there's usually about 50 more questions that are there to be answered. So the answer is yes, my research is contemporary because there's real questions that need to be answered now. And every time we find something out, then we say, well, what about? The next analysis we're doing is examining the data in the Massive Transfusion Registry to compare the ABO group of red cells transfused during a massive transfusion episode with the patient's own group to explore issues regarding blood transfusion laboratory inventory, so how much blood they hold in their fridge, and transfusion laboratory practice. So in this situation, if you're a Group A person, you can actually receive Group O blood. So if you are a Group A and there's insufficient units because you've had 10 units already and that's all they've got and we're still waiting for it to be resupplied. How often does that happen? How does that affect management of those resources? So there's those sorts of questions that we're going to ask and hopefully answer. So the highlights of my career have been making a contribution to patient care. So the patient is always at the heart of the transfusion medicine scientists' thinking through safely providing blood products for transfusion. I've also really enjoyed training scientific and medical staff and sharing case studies and investigations at scientific meetings and the networking that's involved in those meetings. And I've also enjoyed serving on professional bodies and working with colleagues who have become friends. Overall, I would say my life and career as a scientist has been tremendously fabulous, but there have been challenges, and challenges have been really the lack of mentoring for young scientists, the limited job choices in a specialised field, and for the scientist employed in the pathology laboratory, the 24-hour shift work, which is draining. The constant struggle for funding, and that's common, I think, to scientists everywhere. You have to be continually either applying for or justifying or advocating for additional funding. The silo thinking by employers that tends to keep scientists in the laboratory, and scientists shouldn't just be in the laboratory. The scientific thinking is actually really important to hospitals, to businesses, to organisations, because we look at the world and ask questions and solve problems in a particular way. And that's really valuable, and it's often not understood by those who are employing or in organisations. The changes in philosophy by employers has also been challenging. Any time where the workplace values have clashed with my own have been difficult. Politics is in play in all research and in all workplaces, and you have to negotiate this without compromising your integrity and values. I don't know how anyone could live life without curiosity and then a proven strategy to understand the world. Science and the way you answer things in that way is absolutely vital to living a good life. Life without science, how would you live? Well, firstly I would have said, you can do it. And then I would have said, break the task down into small parts and concentrate. Then I would have said, try not to procrastinate. Because I was very good at that. Well, I would say, firstly, be observant and curious. Be mindful. Find out what excellence looks like and try to be part of a diverse team where excellence is practiced and valued. Remember that diversity of background on a team helps to develop the best research questions. And communication is really important. So practice writing and speaking skills and enjoy telling the story of learning and discovery through the lens of a creative, curious, scientific mind.